Let's say the frogs, y'all. Today's video is a little different than my typical what to plant and how to plant videos. Instead, I'm focusing on a project that supports the overall ecosystem of a healthy garden. And even better, in the process can help to reduce pests in your garden naturally. Last year, I had dozens upon dozens of frogs migrate to my garden. I found that this typically happens after periods of torrential rain, and there's these many ponds and puddles that form and provide a temporary refuge for the frogs. However, during periods of drought, during the hottest part of the year, these areas dry up and the frogs migrate to find other sources of water. However, last year I had numerous frogs that I found all throughout my garden in some of the most random spots that were literally cooked and all dried up from the heat of the sun. This absolutely broke my heart, and so I committed to incorporating a water source in my garden to provide refuge and sanctuary for them this year. And to take it a step further, I didn't want to just create a sanctuary for the frog. I wanted to create a sanctuary for the broadest range of beneficial wildlife. Now, I don't have a huge acreage for a pond or a complex watering system, and I know the same goes for most of you. So I wanted to create a solution that was easy, suitable for small spaces, and was inexpensive to make, and hopefully easily repeatable for a lot of you. And so today, I'm gonna bring you along as I create a DIY wildlife sanctuary using easily accessible, inexpensive components, a lot of which you may already have laying around, that's small space friendly and promotes a sustainable and balanced ecosystem and supports beneficial wildlife, providing sanctuary for those that need it most. Let's go. Frogs play a huge role in a healthy ecosystem. They're also an incredible means of natural pest control. A single frog can eat hundreds of pests in a single night, including mosquitoes and other common pests. And frogs don't drink water through the traditional means through their mouth. They actually drink through their skin. This makes them incredibly sensitive to things like pesticides, herbicides, and other toxins. So if you are getting frogs in your garden, it's typically a sign that you have a pretty healthy ecosystem already. Frogs also need water to lay their eggs. While adult frogs are amphibious, meaning they can live on both land and water but need both environments to survive, tadpoles are aquatic, meaning they live fully in water. This is up until they go through a process called metamorphosis, if you remember from 5th grade science class. During this process, they lose their gills and their tail and grow lungs and legs instead until they become a full-blown frog. Now let's talk about the ideal location for your sanctuary. When choosing your sanctuary, you want to choose a spot that hasn't been treated with things like herbicides, pesticides, and isn't going to expose the frogs or the water to harmful toxins. Frogs prefer a cool, damp, and shady spot. So choose a spot that gets dappled sunlight throughout the day so that it doesn't get too hot, but it still gets enough light to support plants and other wildlife. Your next question might be, well, what exactly do I put this in? The sky is the limit when choosing your vessel for your sanctuary. Whatever vessel you use, you want to make sure it's not a material that's porous like an unsealed ceramic, as that will actually wick water away over time. You also want to make sure there are no holes at the bottom. If there are holes, don't fret, you're just going to need to seal them with a waterproof silicone. You also want to choose a container ideally that's wider than it is deep. Remember, frogs are still going to need air to survive. I ended up going to Tractor Supply, and they just so happened to have all their planters on sale, which worked out perfectly. And I found this oversized plastic barrel container that's bigger than the ones you would find at like a big box store. It was 25 inches. The only problem is that it has a hole at the bottom, as you can see, and so I will have to seal that up. To seal the container, I removed the stopper and then put a piece of painter's tape at the bottom. This was just to ensure I didn't seal the container to the ground. Then I used this sandpaper pad that I had laying around the house just to rough up the edges around the hole, just to help the epoxy have something to grip onto. Afterwards, I used a bit of alcohol to remove the residue, as well as any oils to help provide a stronger seal. Then I used this drywall scraper tool that I had laying around, and I just used it to help spread it around a little bit more. And then I let it cure, and then I added a thin layer on top that expanded just over the spot where the hole was to provide an even stronger seal. I let this cure, and then I put some water in the bottom and let it sit for like 10 minutes to see if I got any leakage. It's also important to provide a means for frogs to easily get in and out of your pond. I'm going to be doing this by using a combination of things like wood and stones. I initially went to a home improvement store, the name of which I will not mention, but they had slabs. They were like the small slabs for $14 a slab. And I was like, nay. And so I saw that they had a bunch of broken pieces laying around, and I collected the broken pieces that ended up being bigger than a single slab, and I took it to the register and I was like, these are broken, but I want them. And she was like, oh, well, we can just give those to you for free. And so I ended up getting them for free. So that's a tip. If you do go to one of those big box and home improvement stores, look around for like broken pieces and see if you can get them for either discounted or for free. The only thing with that, you just want to make sure there are no jagged edges that could potentially cut the frog and harm them. And for the rocks, I literally just went out one day and looked around for rocks. I mean, I also just found some in random places laying around. And so I figured, it's okay. It's for nature. And so I'm sure you can find similar materials if you just go outside and look. Next, you're going to need water to fill your pond. Typically, city water is full of all types of chemicals, specifically chlorine and chloramine. This is no bueno for frogs, which I mentioned are incredibly sensitive to different type of toxins in their environment. While chlorine can evaporate if you let it sit out long enough, some cities use chloramine in their water, which does not. So in these instances, it's best to use a water conditioner like a dechlorinator. These are really easy to find. You can usually find them at the pet store, in the aquarium aisle, or if you go to a big box store and they have an aquarium aisle, there's usually a dechlorinator there. However, rainwater is always going to be the best type of water to use for this type of setup. It's going to be free of those chemicals like chlorine and chloramine. It also is full of microorganisms that's going to support beneficial bacteria in your water. It can also provide trace nutrients for your aquatic plants and provide them with a nice healthy boost. I got lucky a few days before I did this. It rained and I knew that I was going to do this, so I collected a bunch of rainwater for the purpose of this pond. So if you do have access to rainwater, use it. But if not, that's okay too. You can fully get by with using tap water. Just make sure you're using a dechlorinator. Now, some of y'all might be like, hold up. Now, what about the mosquitoes? Which you absolutely should, especially if you live here in Texas. You want to make sure you are not creating an environment where you are breeding mosquitoes. And in order to prevent this, I'm going to be treating the water with something called Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, or BTI for short. BTI is a bacteria that's found naturally but acts as a larvicide for mosquitoes, blackfly, and fungus gnats. It works by disrupting their digestive system and prevents them from being able to feed, so they starve to death. You can use things like mosquito dunks, which I believe work over a more extended period of time, or you can use the BTI drops, which is what I'm going to be using because that's what I have on hand. The drops I'm using are actually formulated for ponds, and so it's highly concentrated, but you do have to reapply about every 2 weeks. Once you've attracted native wildlife to your sanctuary, like dragonfly and frogs and the tadpoles, they'll become less of a problem, but you always do want to make sure you're checking your water for mosquito larvae because we do not ever want to breed mosquitoes. Next are the plants, which outside of the water is one of the most important components of the setup. For this setup, I'm not going to be using a filter or aerator. Instead, I'm going to let nature do its thing. For this to work, I'm going to be adding a combination of plants that help to oxygenate and or filter the water by absorbing excess nutrients and help to mitigate the formation of algae. Also, by adding different sized stones and other things in the water to create different crevices, you're creating surface area for good bacteria to grow. They're also going to help with the filtration of your water. I got all of my plants from a local nursery here in the Houston metro area called Nelson's Water Garden. They had a wide variety of aquatic, bog, and marginal plants, as well as a really broad selection of native plants and flowers, as well as a lot of vegetable crops. Given I'm working with such a small space, I try to be as strategic as possible when choosing my plants. I broke up my plants into a few distinct categories. The first are my submersives. Your submersives are going to sit completely underwater. And for this, I'm only choosing one variety, which is hornwort. I don't know why I have trouble saying hornwort. I'll put it on the screen. This is going to work to oxygenate the water. Next are your marginal plants, which only like to be submerged a few inches in the water, but should not be completely submerged. For this, I chose lemon bacopa, which is a Texas native, as well as papyrus. These are going to add an element of filtration to the water. Because we're creating a wildlife sanctuary, you want to ensure you have a bit of height to some of your plants. Now, I chose papyrus. I'm also going to be just planting these random bamboo stakes, like staking them near my pond to create a perch for things like dragonflies. Now, dragonflies is hands down one of the best less natural of predators to attract to your garden. Not only do they eat a wide variety of flying insects, land insects, their larvae lives in the water and feed on things like mosquito larvae. Next are your bog plants, and these are plants that don't like to be submerged in water, but they like to stay consistently moist. Because I'm dealing with a small area, I just ended up creating these mini bogs around my pond. The next category will be floating plants, and I'm not adding any floating plants at this point in time. The plants that they had at the nursery were rather large. However, I know a lot of people, especially on YouTube, recommend water lettuce. Just so you know, water lettuce is illegal to sell and distribute in the state of Texas because of how invasive it is. So I would highly recommend avoiding water lettuce because it's illegal. Next, I'm going to be planting native plants, and I'm going to be planting them in pots around my pond, so they then become part of my broader sanctuary. Native plants provide a variety of benefits. This is especially important for native bees. Now, while honeybees are friends in the garden, and I love my honeybees, when you hear people say save the bees, typically they're referring to native bees, which are in drastic decline. In fact, in Texas alone, there are over 1,000 species of native bees, and unfortunately, a large variety of which have seen drastic decreases in their populations. This is due to habitat loss as well as other environmental pressures. So even small spaces like this make a difference. Enough of that, let's go build our sanctuary. I ended up repotting the marginal plants in these fabric pots. They're 1-gallon pots. And the reason why I did that was for a few reasons. One, it gives the plants better access to oxygen. And two, it will also give the roots better access to the nutrients in the water and help with the filtration process, which is what we want. When I did this, it was actually quite difficult for one of the plants. It was like in this thick clay that has suction to the plastic pots, which just validated that this was the right move. However, it did make the water a bit cloudy just from some of the soil that was in the pot got into the water. But from what I have read, this is completely normal and it should clear up on its own within a matter of a few days. So not a big deal. I think it's pretty minor, but I do think it was the right move. The fabric will also be a great kind of medium for that beneficial bacteria to kind of colonize there. So overall, I think the fabric pots were a better move. I hope y'all found this useful and beneficial, and you'll get out and create your very own wildlife sanctuary. Oftentimes we forget that our ecosystem gives us so much, and sometimes we take it for granted or even fail to acknowledge this. And so I think it's important that we find ways to give back to that ecosystem no matter how small. This is starting to sound like an episode of Captain Planet. Captain Planet. Y'all remember that show? What was it? It was Captain Planet. It was a time where like cartoons was a thing. Like you got up in the morning and like ate your cereal when it had like games on the back of the cereal box and like prizes in the cereal box. And you watch your cartoons. Like on Saturday, you get up and watch cartoons. Anybody? Yeah? No? Until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And remember, every black thumb ripens to green, and it all just starts with a seed.